Find it, which I can't.
And we're live. So welcome everyone to the free agency live reactions. My name is Morten Jensen, and my guest alongside me, a very British person, Mark Deeks. He and I go way back, almost 20 years. He will not admit this, neither will I if you really press me on it, but nevertheless, it is true. And today we'll be basically just reacting to all the craziness that's going to happen over the next couple of hours. Mark, how are you?
I'm all right, but after 20 years, you still identify me via my nationality. So it's a little bit offensive. There is more to me as a person than an excellent accent and a fabulous haircut. But we can start with that if you want. That's fine. There's also my snappy dress sense, which is just out of view.
Right, and your beard. Let's not forget about that, which is glorious. I can't get the same thickness.
No, it's not so much style as it is neglect in a shape. But we'll take it. We'll take it. It's the best I can do. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've been looking forward to this. This to me is always like, I guess, Christmas and Thanksgiving, even though we don't even celebrate that in Denmark, but everything rolled into one. The draft and free agency, that's my favorite time of year, which makes me a very sad person, Mark.
Yes, and I'm willing to talk about your character traits for 2 hours if you want. But maybe some news will happen. Maybe there'll be some basketball transactions. Who knows? Or we can just stage an intervention for you. Whatever you want.
Whatever comes up. But in the meantime, though, I think it's time to talk about Kyle Lowry because he is being rumored to Miami. The Heat picked up Goran Dragic's $19.4 million team option, which presumably is going to be a part of a larger sign and trade negotiation. Before we went live, you and I spoke very briefly about this. You do not seem entirely keen on Kyle Lowry to Miami.
Well, in the sense that it would not be the suboptimal way to go for any other team, no. However, this is Miami that we're talking about. They target the ready, they target the veterans. So they're looking for a Chris Paul style redux, someone who will drag them back to the finals that they were only so recently in and yet so far away from last year. There's no other reason on this earth you would exercise the Dragic option. Dragic looks near enough done last year, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but compared from where he was to what he became a net negative overall as a player. So to give him, what you say, 19 point something million is purely done for his value on the trade market. In addition to which, Kyle Lowry is the best player at the position, the best free agent available at the position that Miami needs the most. So it all ties together in that respect. He will play a Heat brand style of basketball, and he will do so for the only couple of years that Pat Riley probably still has a stake in this thing. So in that respect, it does make sense. If it is Goran Dragic or Kyle Lowry, you obviously take Kyle Lowry. However, all that positivity aside, how long is Kyle Lowry still going to be good for? They would like, I personally don't care, but they would like for him to have a Chris Paul style Indian summer, as we call it over here, where the end never seems to come, but it will come eventually. He is mid-30s. So am I. So are you. We are done. He must be as well. It cannot be that far short of a fairly precipitous decline, especially considering the workload he put in last season for a man in his mid-30s. He was still averaging 36 minutes per game. Now, he has aged extremely well hitherto, especially considering he used to be such a reckless firebrand type of player when he was young, to have become the heady, poised veteran of smarts and discipline and effort on both ends like he has. That's going to age well, but his stamina and his ability to lead the team won't. And that surely is kind of what they're getting him for, because they don't want Jimmy Butler to do it all. He too is in danger of being overworked. So I get why they're doing it. It is better than what they had last year, which was to say not much. However, they now running the risk of, for the second consecutive year, putting out these massive contracts to Dragic, to Iguodala as it was last year, to also Myers Leonard. You remember that? They re-signed him. That didn't go well, purely to try and make them available in trade down the road. So now they have to cash in on it, or else they have biffed it for the 2 years after making the NBA Finals.
There you go.
Was that 2 hours?
Not quite. I am
quite.
thinking, however, just by him joining forces with Jimmy Butler in particular, like the ball handling duties will go down for Kyle Lowry. Like he won't have to be the all around play initiator, playmaker. Like Jimmy's going to take care of a lot of that. Bam Adebayo as well is probably going to get more touches, more shots, a bigger role overall in the offense. So I'm wondering if this could be one of those optimized situations for Lowry to end up in, where the burden doesn't really fall that much onto his shoulders.
Well, you'd hope that would suit him best. However, that does mean that you are not going to get a player all that superior to, let's say, Spencer Dinwiddie, because the advantage of Lowry is that he's better at that type of thing. If you're just looking for someone to play essentially a tertiary role, why are you paying a primary price?
Absolutely. And now let's get straight to the news, Mark, because you know what? We've had our first
We actually,
major bump.
11. Well, it's 11 my time. Sorry, 6 p.m. Eastern.
So Lonzo Ball has agreed to a 4-year, $85 million deal with the Chicago Bulls.
Well, that was extremely unexpected, and this is my shock piece. Fair enough. I mean, they've had him on the target list for about 15 years now, so it's not a surprise that this has gone down. I mean, it is 11 seconds past 6 p.m. So to negotiate $85 million in 11 seconds is an enviable rate of investment. And of course, because of the fact that Lonzo has been considered such a target for the Bulls for so long, we have already done our preparatory analysis for this move. And by we, I mean you. Hit it.
Well, I think this makes sense for the Bulls. They need something more than just having Zach LaVine and a bunch of average point guards create. He needs to be set up more. They need to put him in a more favorable scoring role. You have a big guard in Lonzo that's going to come in. He can stretch the floor a little bit. He's not one of those self-creators. He's probably best at just spotting up from the outside, but he can do that. He got better. The shot really got fixed. This year, he just looked so much better than it did in years prior. And least we forget, he's only 23, so I think it's fair to assume that he's going to get better. Now, there's been a lot of chatter on NBA Twitter recently as to whether or not he's more of a wing than a guard, which I think is interesting. So what do you look at? Is he a guard? Is he more of a wing? Is he even playing the right position? What is his future outlook in that regard?
Well, if we stick to the old adage that you are who you defend, then Ball could be a 1-2 or a 3. And his man-to-man defense is one of his greatest strengths. Off the ball, different story, but that, like you say, he's 23. That can be worked out over time. Man-to-man, he can be a pressure at the point of attack or on the wing. I think he's more naturally predisposed defensively and also offensively to the point guard spot, but that's not to say he's a front line string pulling point guard akin to the man we just talked about, Kyle Lowry. He will do a bit of that, but if you ask him to lead the line, you're going to bog down. But like you say, therein lies Zach LaVine, about whom the same can also be said, but who didn't have the complementary part next to him in last year and the year prior with Kobe White, Ryan Arcidiacono. It was too big of a role for him. And much as Thomas Satoransky is an excellent player, not unlike Lonzo in some ways, he also is not a frontline breaker downer. So if you use Lonzo in such a way that he attacks in transition and semi-transition, he's a tertiary or secondary ball handler, not too much the primary guy, and he is spotting up and shooting a little bit, you have yourself a good two-way player. You don't have yourself a star, but let's remember that essentially $21 million per annum, whilst it sounds like a lot, and I think it's more than you and I both earn, it's not actually star money anymore.
This is true. And so we have to move quickly, Mark, because apparently the NBA just moves very quickly. No one is tampering, of course. That is not legal, but somehow, some way, Will Barton has agreed to return to the Denver Nuggets, 2 years, $32 million. That's fair value all over, I think. They needed him back. He needed a place where he could come in and play a lot. He will get that starting spot in Denver. 2 years, $16 million a year. I think that's fair.
Right, I'm going to open a notepad window because there's also been about 5 other things gone down in the time it took me to answer that one other question. So we've also got to talk about Garrett Temple. Oh, yes, anyone who had Garrett Temple in the sweepstake for the surprising early name Mason Plumlee Award for the small name that goes early on competition. I thought it was going to be Enes Kanter, but there you go, Garrett Temple. Mike Conley has, as expected, gone back to the Jazz. And there was another one I saw that I just scrolled down. Kyle Lowry, there you go. That's who it is. Kyle Lowry has agreed to join the Miami Heat. Tim Hardaway has re-signed. I was worried that I wouldn't have enough to say for 2 hours, but apparently we're burning through it all in 6 minutes. In response to what you said about Will Barton, there has always been a bit of a difficult fit with him as constructed on the team because he is a playmaking wing. He's better with the ball in his hands than without it. That has been a bit difficult, and he didn't take being benched too well. However, the upside, if you will, not that it's a positive overall, but the positive from the negative of the Jamal Murray injury is that this offers a better short-term position for Barton. If nothing else, he will now be tradable in a way that he wasn't previously. Whether that's at the deadline or next summer remains to be seen. Your turn, Garrett Temple, New Orleans Pelicans.
Garrett Temple, a 3-year deal, first 2 years guaranteed. First, it was reported only the first one was guaranteed at $5 million per. So,
well, that sounds a bit sign and tradey, doesn't it? Because don't forget that with Lonzo going one way, Garrett Temple going the other way. In a sign and trade, only the first year has to be guaranteed. So it sure sounds like he's going the other way there.
Yeah, and that would probably be the framework of a larger deal. I will say I love Garrett Temple for New Orleans. They needed a veteran to come in and just be a locker room setter. He was that for Chicago this year. This is a great signing for them. They needed something. Zion and all the kids there. You can't have too much youth just running around making all the rules. I think having a vet, someone of that caliber to come in and set the tone is so huge. Also, by the way, Tim Hardaway Jr. is returning to the Dallas Mavericks, $72 million on a 4-year deal, which reminiscence of Luol Deng and Joakim Noah, although he will be far more effective because that's the exact same deal being signed by those two guys in 2016, the very infamous new cap year. But I love that deal. I mean, he's been such a revelation the 2 years that he's been with Luka, just spotting up off of the attention of Doncic. He's going to stick around. That's a good deal. I mean, what is that overall? That is 32.
Well, it's almost exactly the same. Sorry, it's almost exactly the same deal that the Knicks were trying to dump him off of after they signed him to it previously. Yeah. He was the required rather than desired inclusion in the Porzingis deal purely because of the size of his deal. But then he's gone on to redeem it. Remember, not last year, but the year prior, Dallas had the phenomenal offense, historic offense built out of their fearless and efficient three-point shooting, of which Tim Hardaway was the head of the snake. So he's now going to earn exactly the same money. The difference is this time he's going to earn that exact same money rather than just receive it.
And of course, there's another piece of news coming up with the Dallas Mavericks. Free agent center Boban Marjanovic has agreed to a deal to re-sign.
Sorry, I've never done that. I've never done that before, and I don't know why I did it just now. How much has he gone? I can't see that one.
Nope, that I haven't seen a monetary amount yet, but he has not been well compensated over the past couple of years, so I would assume that it's pretty low.
Well, you can't really compensate him considering that as effective as he is in his role, it is only ever going to be a small role. He will never be a rotation player. He'll be one of 3 that you have in your center lineup. He'll be incredibly good at what he does briefly, but you can't play him for too long simply because he's a defensive liability in any spot other than the exact one that he's standing in. So, fair. What was it last time? I think he was on a 2-year, $6 million type of deal, roughly that size. If I knew this stuff off the top of my head, I'd probably be employed. It was something like that, though, because he was the third wheeler behind Dwight Powell and ultimately Willie Cauley-Stein, all of whom quite favorably paid. So let's hope that continues.
And you were absolutely right about the Garrett Temple sign and trade. The Chicago Bulls are sending Tomas Satoransky, Garrett Temple, and a second-round pick to New Orleans for Lonzo Ball, who is signing a 4-year, $85 million contract. So,
well, that's just a sweet deal then for Chicago because
it is.
Sato's good and on a good price, but he was going somewhere at some point. Temple is you paid him a lot of superlatives just then, and I do understand why, but at the same time, he's the other side of 30, and he wasn't particularly good last year. Excuse me. Second round pick entirely negligible. They've just gone and got themselves a big upgrade and a young piece at their greatest position of need for the cost of excess wings. Well done.
Yep. And also, since this is a sign and trade in this regard, I have to assume that there's not going to be any waiting period. That's just going to be a straight on agreed to deal. It's not going to be an offer sheet thing. This is going to be a a deal.
No,
right
it
off the
wouldn't be
bat.
offer sheets. You
Exactly.
can't sign an offer sheet and then do a sign and trade.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's neither or. So yeah.
I should have sounded way more confident because I knew that.
No. You set your guest up to look good,
Yeah.
and that's the sign of a pro. So thank you for that. I'll leave the money in your locker.
And also, Jimmy Butler has agreed to a maximum contract extension with the Miami Heat, and it's apparently for 4 years, $184 million. Mark.
So hang on. This man who said that the last contract he signed would be his last one changed his mind. That's going to run for a long time. No? Sorry, say that again.
I think he meant the team, right?
He might have done. I was fairly sure that he said that when he signed his big deal with Miami previous, that it might be the last contract he ever signed, and he was talking about retiring after it, which would be 2 years from now if he exercised his PO, irrespective of whether he said that or not. It clearly is not the case if he's signing an extension. That's probably going to smart in the back end, but Miami's all in. Why wouldn't they be, considering how close they got just 2 short seasons ago? So, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Another piece of news coming out once again for the Denver Nuggets.
We haven't even done Mike Conley yet. It's rattling through. Hit it.
Yeah. JaMychal Green, 2 years, $17 million to return to Denver. That's 8.5. What? Yeah, right. Yeah, $8.5 million.
Well, that's essentially the non-tax MLA, or it's essentially a continuation of what he had last year because he opted out of 7.56. So I guess he's opted out to take the extra year, which is fair enough. It's still, yeah. I mean, if you are of the mind that Bol is going to be something, he essentially just got blocked. But if you are of the mind that despite his talent level, Bol will never have the physique or the hips to be a NBA rotation player, then yeah, why not? Good player. Also,
just so we're giving you all the important analysis tonight, Bol in Danish translates directly to fuck. So there we go. And this is true.
Well, I didn't realize we could swear on this show, and things might now take a bit of a rum tone. Should I keep my clothes on? Is it that kind of show?
It's YouTube, man. Do whatever the fuck you want.
I was seeing all like highbrow with the sign and trade rules and things like that, and then you just come and go, fuck. It's like, wow, this was going to be on my professional show reel, but now,
no, you don't expect professionalism from me.
Both of your viewers are going to be so upset.
It's going to be horrible. Well, we have 32 actually, so
32.
Jokes on
Hello, 32 people. For not being able to find a better stream.
All right, we have double Knicks news. So Alec Burks has agreed to a 3-year, $30 million contract to stay with the Knicks, and Nerlens Noel has signed on to another 3-year, or not another, but also a 3-year contract worth $32 million. So essentially the same contract, just plus $2 million. You know what? I don't hate those deals. I mean,
well, hang
Burks
on,
is a good scorer.
Yeah. However, top of my head, you can't do those through bird rights, so they're gobbling up what's going to sound like 15 million of cap room on re-signing 2 in their prime veterans who won't start on good teams.
Well, they have almost 50 million in cap space, so I think that they have another move to go, though.
I do hope so.
Yeah, it seems like they have a move locked and loaded to be unleashed at some point during our live stream here. That wouldn't shock me. And Jarrett Allen has agreed to a 5-year, $100 million contract to stay with the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's a lot better. The rumor a couple of months ago was $100 million over 4 years. 5, that turns it into a much better, more manageable contract. That's $20 million a year for a guy who, in my opinion, is going to get better. I don't know what the upside is for him offensively, but defensively, he's really talented. He's a good rebounder. He's a good energy guy. But is it the right contract for him overall, in your opinion?
Yes, as long as he stays healthy, which, considering his natural frailness, is potentially an issue. But while he did slightly stop growing in line with the optimistic projections offensively, he's nevertheless still a very good player who Cleveland got for cheap, knowing they'd have to pay, and whom they have now paid. Nice and easy business.
Yeah. And also 20 million beats 25 million from the side of the team, of course. So that will always be a win for the Cavaliers.
Cleveland are very much not in a position to worry about their cap space 5 years down the road right now. They just need to lock up the young talents that they have worth having, because they're still at a significant talent disparity with the rest of the NBA. God, that was impressive, wasn't
it? We have a question from our YouTube audience from Tomas Pivonka. Apologies on the pronunciation. What do you think of Satoransky? Mark, I'm going to throw that to you.
As a person, as a love machine, what do you mean? What I think of him as a player, I think he's incredibly solid. I think he makes any team better. I think he absolutely does not move a needle, but he does raise the floor. How about that?
Yeah, I think that is very, very well said. I
Thank
agree.
you. If you take all the superlatives that Morton gave towards Garrett Temple, big them up by about 150%. That's how I feel about Thomas Satoransky. He's a very good player who's been slept on, who's still got a little bit of burst even as he gets older, and who, as we've seen, admittedly in Czech Republic's now ended Olympics run, and especially their Olympic qualifying run, can pull the strings sometimes. He's a good player at three positions who's worth the money he's getting.
I'm slightly concerned that his turnover ratio is going to persist. I hope he declines that a little bit for next year. He was at almost 21% turnover rate this year, which was kind of an abomination. But outside of that, he was a very efficient passer, and he was a guy who would come in and when he really felt like it, he would attack the rim. But I think there was a little bit of an issue just with Wendell Carter wouldn't leave the paint. That didn't really provide him with so many chances. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do elsewhere. And we have Detroit Pistons news. Free agent Kelly Olynyk has agreed to a 3-year, $37 million deal with the Pistons.
Sorry, I was a very all-time swig of soft drink. Other brands are available. Yes, well, that again wasn't unexpected. That's a Olynyk type of price range for a man who, let's not forget, he's very offensively skilled. Yeah. And whilst it came on a Houston team that wasn't going anywhere and was willing to let anyone try anything, he was incredibly good in his short audition last year with them. I must apologize to your Danish viewers of how fast I talk. Sorry. But yes, that's a fair enough deal. Again, it's hard to quite piece together where Detroit are at and where they're going. It is not the time to kickstart a reboot, but at the same time, you just got Cade Cunningham.
Right.
You can make the playoffs next year just as constructed. So if they're not going to be in line for the big names, and they're not, that's a pretty good player for a pretty good price. So I'm okay with that deal on initial reactions. And of course, that's what we're here for. I'll think about it later.
Yeah, no, I love it because I think this gives Cade some flexibility. I mean, now you have a big that he can play pick and roll with, play mostly pick and pop, but still he'll have a very talented offensive big that he has the capability of building some relationship with, a chemistry with. That's also going to, in my opinion, prepare him more for the years to come, where presumably the Pistons are going to get more talented up front. This is just a great. I don't think stopgap is the right word, but I think this is a good stepping stone issue for the Pistons with Olynyk. He'll come in, he'll be productive immediately. It sure as hell beats what they did last year at free agency when they signed Mason Plumlee. So I love this one.
Mason Plumlee's price is not bad. I appreciate it was maligned partly because of the position he plays, partly because it was such a bizarre move to see after the team was so blatantly blown up. But he's quite good, and that's quite good money. I mean, I think he posted top of the head. I'm not going to look it up. 1.7 VORP last year. He plays both ends. He's got a little bit of burst, and he's got a little bit of skill. So, yeah, it was more to do with the maneuvering to get to that point and the bizarre stretching of Dwayne Dedman that went down prior with it. And the fact that they dumped Plumlee, they moved down 20 spots. What was that sum total of that deal on draft night to get rid of Plumlee? Yeah, they moved from 37 to 27. That's what they moved from 37 to 57 to dump Plumlee. Right. That's right. Yes. So they paid to get off of a deal that wasn't a bad deal just to give out a similar one to a player who played the similar position at a similar age. Bit odd, but in a vacuum, not bad.
But it's better, I would argue, because offensively, he just gives you so many more layers than Mason Plumlee does. And at the same time, I think it was more along the lines of why is Plumlee at that age with a young group signing there? What was really the upside? I think that was primarily the thinking at the time. By the way, we've gotten some clarification on the contract of Mike Conley. He's agreed to a 3-year, $72.5 million contract to stay with the Jazz. That's a deal, no? I mean, considering how much he could have squeezed the lemon. So the Jazz have signed both Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell to enormous deals. They have Bojan Bogdanovic on their books as well. I mean, they would have had no other way of really going out and acquiring a top-level point guard. So Conley, if you wanted to, could really have squeezed them. And I think this is a really solid deal for the Jazz. I mean, I kind of feel like Mike Conley is leaving money at the table, but you know what? He's looking at that window. He wants to win. I think that has to play a part in it.
It's a decent compromise in that I would not want to pay the last year of that deal, and he will be 34 by the start of next season. However, like you say, it's their only chance of getting a top, not top tier, but a quality starting point guard that will be able to keep their window open. And they do have a legitimate title window at this time. So if that's the price of doing business, if the risk is that they might be overpaying by a few million in 3 seasons' time, well, so be it. I agree.
Yeah. And the Pacers have come to terms with CJ McConnell, who seems to be returning to them. No,
that's the main
monetary.
news, isn't it? I mean, we still haven't covered, various things like Will Barton, for example. I still haven't responded to what you said, but why would we when CJ McConnell is out here making noise?
He was good last year, though.
He was good last year. He thoroughly outplayed Aaron Holiday, who was a very good backup point guard the year prior. TJ McConnell was very good. What price did you say he got?
No, there hasn't been one. So maybe that's the big question. What's a fair contract to keep TJ McConnell around?
I would probably slot him into what was Doug McDermott's salary slot, which was 3 years, 21 million off the top of my head.
Yeah, that seems realistic as well. Maybe he gets something that resembles the full non-tax mid-level. In that case, he would be slightly overpaid, but maybe not to a perverse degree. I would trust him. I wouldn't have any major issues with it.
That would be an overpayment. You might be able to get some resale value out of it, but not a huge amount when you're talking about whilst he's an impact player, he's also a backup with that tremendous upside. So you wouldn't want to overpay because it would be hard to deal. But I think in the McDermott slot, he wouldn't be overpaid. And I must apologize for already interrupting you about 12 times.
All good. That's why you're here.
I get excited. I'm sorry.
This is the holidays for all of us. So of course,
I'm going to blame the lag as the signal goes over the Jutland Peninsula or whatever's in between us. But that's not true. I'm just not a nice person.
Having known you for 20 years, I can confirm. Let's go back to talk about Will Barton in that case, since you brought him up. What more did you have?
I can't remember. I genuinely cannot remember what it was that I was going to say. So, like I said, not a nice person, not a very good person to be on a stream with. I didn't mention all of this to you earlier because I didn't want to ruin your day. But no, it was a fine deal. Have they got Millsap news out yet?
Not yet. He was actually rumored to go elsewhere. Where the hell was it that I saw that? Oh yeah, that was Golden State.
Yeah, I mean, simply because they're running out of money and
right.
Solid though he is as the backup 4-5, more 5 at this point, you would think that trading for Aaron Gordon pushes out the 4 minutes. And when it comes to filling up the backup 5, you can do that with Green and perhaps even Bobo, perhaps Ignazi, and perhaps JaVale was going to go back for a smaller price. So I think purely financially, they are going to run out of room unless he takes a significant discount, which he doesn't have an incentive to do, considering there'll be a market for him.
By the way, for those watching, feel free to ask questions in the comments, and we'll get to those. So just go nuts. Also,
I can't see the comments. I can't see the comments. People being like rude. Are they saying, "Who's that sweaty Englishman? What's he doing here? Get rid of him. I just want to hear Morten." Because I would understand if that was the case.
No, we have someone who says loving this, guys, which I take is really complimentary, or he's doing something to himself which he loves, which is also
that's fine. And I've seen myself in the mirror. I understand the temptation, but I must say, if you've come here for actual NBA content, other streams are available. I'm just putting it out there. They don't have us on.
Thank you for saying that on my channel. I really appreciate
about them. Oh yeah, everyone like and subscribe. Sorry, that's what I meant to say.
Thank you. There we go. All right, and see, this is an information that we probably should have had before, but now we're getting it after the launch of free agency. The salary cap for the year has come in. The NBA has set salary cap for 2021-2022 season, effective for August free agency, $112,414,000 in the cap, $136,606,000 tax line.
That is exactly the same as what they were at the last official projection, which I think was released in May, maybe April. I've never known them be as accurate as that before, but they are exactly the same as the most recent projection, which means teams have already been operating on the basis of those numbers being at the very least in the ballpark. So it's not going to shift the needle any, but it is good to get confirmation.
And we have a comment basically saying here, couldn't actually find another stream. So thank you.
Well, that's good. It's nice to know that you've exhausted every other possible avenue for entertainment this evening before thinking, Christ, is it them two? Yes, it is. Thank you for coming, and I can only apologize.
All right. So with that cap set, I mean, isn't it normally something we learn a day before actual free agency? Has this just been a scrambling mode because of the weirdness of the season? I almost imagine so.
It used to be the case that they did it at the end of the moratorium. That was particularly weird. So you'd go out and negotiate contracts and then see if you could actually fit them in and then modify them on the fly. The whole point of the moratorium is, well, start a free agency is, of course, to do the giant audit and make all the numbers add up and work out all the numbers for the subsequent season. But it became a bit became a bit farcical at one point when teams had agreed lots of contracts. Which year was it when the moratorium went on for a month? I think it was 2005. So now they instead decide it beforehand, or in this case, 23 minutes afterwards.
So, all right, you know what? I think we have to talk about this, Mark. Just the whole tampering thing, because that's been a hot button issue on Twitter over the past 24 hours. All the rumors that came out before, and now they're turning true. All the deals that are made within the first 5 minutes of opening.
11 seconds for the first one. That's got to be a record. Shan posted that at 2,311 seconds on British time, so 11 minutes past 6 p.m. Eastern.
No, but like, should we just stop pretending and just go all, European football on it?
Who does pretend, to be fair? We all know.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone on this side of the line knows. Everyone on that side of the line knows. Everyone on the agents knows. The NBA's higher ups know. You pay lip service to the idea. Ultimately, if everyone's doing it, it's well, what did Adam Silver say? He said there's nothing we can do to prevent player tampering, so they pretty much don't enforce it. It's team to player tampering that they do legislate for, as Milwaukee found out. However, let's take Tim Hardaway, for example. I want to clarify, in absolutely no way am I saying Dallas tampered with Tim Hardaway, because I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that right up until the minute prior to the deadline, he was extension eligible. Excuse me. It's quite late. So they could have rung him an hour before the deadline and was like, we'll offer you a 4-year, $72 million deal. They could have done. And so let's say hypothetically he'd taken 100 million. They ring and they say, we'll offer you a 4-year, 70 million extension. And he'll say, well, no, thank you. I'm looking more for the 4-year, $100 million range. And they ring back after 11 p.m. We'll give you 100 done. That's not tampering. That didn't happen. He took the 72, but that could have happened. If you can negotiate with your extension eligible players right up until the moment that the moratorium begins, which you can, then you can have a dialogue with them, at which point, why the hell wouldn't you? How the hell can you not figure out what they need in that circumstance? So again, I use Hardaway and the Mavericks purely as an example because he's the only extension eligible one I think we've seen thus far that I can remember who stayed with his own team. But precisely because of that, it serves to illustrate the point. You can talk to your own players, so it logically follows from there that you will then be able to talk to others. Yeah, it's against the rules. Who's going to prosecute?
Right. But shouldn't we just then remove the rules?
Then what happens is you get players tapped up during the season, which, again, let's not pretend it doesn't happen. But if that becomes an infestation, then you've got a real problem. If you want to move away from super teams, as most people seem to want to do so, you don't want to have players expressly tapped up by other teams during the season. There's already enough player-to-player communication going on. So I think the current situation whereby the rules are what they are, the reality is what it is, don't be too blatant about it, and we'll let it slide, is a compromise that is inevitable and probably here to stay.
Fair enough. We have a question from Penton. Is the Zach LaVine extension now dead for this offseason? I have to assume they're operating over the cap, in which case, yeah. Right? I mean, if it goes to the renegotiated...
Yeah, the renegotiation extension will rely on cap room. You can extend them anyway. You'd have to start at 120% of 19.5 million, which back of the envelope calculations is a shade under 24 million, which is not going to be enough, I shouldn't think. However, it depends on how much cap room they've got left, and there's no way on God's green earth I can tell you that through the pure guesswork. If you see anyone pointing out the math on the Twitters right now, throw it our way. That would be grand.
In order to do the renegotiate and extend option for a max contract, they would need at least 14 million in cap space, raw cap space.
If you need to go all the way to the max, then yes.
Yeah,
Perhaps
of
you
course.
don't.
Right, maybe not, but that's why I said max, Mark.
Yeah, well, I don't listen to what you say, dude. Come on. Then yes, probably. I mean, they could, in theory, there'll be a market for Thad Young, who was good last year, as we know. They could, in theory, just dump that off, reopen the cap space that way, and then give it to Levine. I would suspect it might be a better use of their limited assets remaining to max Cristiano Felicio. Obviously, there's no question about that. But to better the team elsewhere, let Levine go into unrestricted free agency.
And it seemed like we lost Mark. He was on a admittedly shaky connection, he told me before he joined in. So I am assuming he's going to join right back in momentarily. In the meantime, we have Cameron Payne, who has agreed to re-sign with the Phoenix Suns on a 3-year contract worth $19 million. That's a great deal. I mean, over a month ago, I had him at roughly $15 million because I know that the market has been so hungry for point guards. He's obviously someone who's got a great story. He's bounced back this year, was really came into his own, played in finals. Mark is back. I'm adding him to the stream. So I really dig that the contract by Phoenix for Cameron Payne. I think it's great value. And here's a man who's probably going to disagree with me on that.
Well, I don't know what it is because I was so busy locking back in because I've got so many windows open. I moved my phone, put it on the closed window button. Sorry, everybody. I'm not a pro. What have they given Campaign and who gave it to him?
So he's going to stick with Phoenix on a 3-year contract worth $19 million.
19?
Yep.
Done. Easy.
Right. Yep.
Wow.
That's what I said. That's what I told the audience while you were away. That is
we just talked about TJ McConnell potentially getting more than that, and Campaign was just a key player on a finals team. So that's a lovely deal.
Yeah, that's a bargain for Phoenix. I see. That's the thing. Brian and I have talked about this on the podcast quite a lot. We were of the mindset that he would probably stick in Phoenix, assuming he got paid assuming the market was somewhere in this ballpark. But if someone else were like throwing him somewhere along the lines of 14, 15 million per year, obviously he would go elsewhere because he hasn't had his big payday yet. So it makes me wonder a little bit. Was the market just not that aggressive about Cameron Payne? Could there be concerns?
There's a lot of point guards in this market when you think about how many players we've talked about today already that were point guards. Lowry, Conley, Ball. So there's not double figures out there for Payne, but I still thought it'd be up in the 25, tapping on 30 range. So 19 is a good price.
Yeah. I agree. So Trae Young and the Hawks are expected to finalize a max extension tonight. Deal will be for 5 years, $170 million, with a supermax trigger that could push it to $201.5 million. I mean,
well, yeah.
Why wouldn't you? Right. That might be the most obvious deal.
Hello, Trae. How many years would you like? Please say 5. 5 it is.
Yeah.
Done. Move on.
Yeah. I think the biggest issue here is whether that. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No. I'm saying when you negotiate with Trae, you say how many years do you want? Please take 5. You take 5. Okay, now go and get better at defense. Earn it. But of course, you give him the max extension.
Yeah. I think that the question here is whether there are going to be options in it, but I doubt it.
Well, there can only be one, and even then, if it's a player option in the final year, you're still getting 7 guaranteed years out of Trae Young, and if he then gets the next, I can't remember the word now, but the funky extension you get after the 7th year, and to
the 35.
Yes, I can't remember the word. There you go. The 35%. If he has an option for that, fair enough. You're still going to pay him if he earns it because it's Trae Young and that's the foundation of your team. So it's not an issue regardless.
We finally have monetary information on TJ McConnell. 4 years, $35 million.
Right. So now what did Campaign get? 3 years and 19. Give me the Payne deal. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like TJ McConnell, but that's definitely Campaign I would prefer. That said, I don't think on its face it's horrible value for TJ McConnell. I mean, he's a great defender. He's one of the best passers in the league. I think he
I won't go that far with the passing bit, but he's certainly a good passer and a willing one and a good defender. Yes, do please carry on.
Well, the thing about him is that he's a complete non-3-point shooter, right? So if that changes, which I don't anticipate it changing much, if any, that would change the entire picture of this. Like if he becomes just a moderately volume 3-point shooter with decent percentages, that could change everything. But
yeah, he won't. He's not got the form and the natural shooting rhythm. He's
yeah,
not going to turn into something that he isn't after 15 years of high level play. And how many
I
years
would
now
agree.
in the NBA? 7, I think.
Seven, yeah,
Yeah,
6 or
so
7.
that's not good. In 2014, I think he went undrafted out of Arizona. So the 3-point shooters are going to come around now. He may hit a few, but he just doesn't have the form to make it happen. In terms of jump shot range, it's still going to be those little runners he likes going right. But that's fine, because that has not stopped him being a good player hitherto. It need not stop him being a good player going forward.
I wonder what the plans are for Indiana, because obviously they brought in Rick Carlisle. Things are changing a little bit. There's been a lot of rumblings about change up on the roster. And like keeping CJ McConnell on suggests at least a little bit that they're probably going to stay with the status quo. And at least for now, I don't anticipate some major deal going down. It hasn't been rumored, nor does it seem like anyone else of major significance is available. What do you make of the Pacers going into next year?
Well, keeping the status quo together is pretty much the Pacers' MO. Rarely do they shake it up, and really should they. It's a solid team that didn't achieve everything it could have done last year due to the Karis LeVert situation, and prior to that, the Victor Oladipo situation. TJ Warren, of course, was out for the year. So there's a lot of reasons to assume they're going to be a second-round team once again, and that's fine. We know this from Indiana, that the second round is fine. Ideally, they compete for the top, but they'd much rather stay in the middle and fall to the bottom. And they will do. There's quality there, as LeVert has said. There's Malcolm Brogdon, there's Sabonis, there's Miles Turner. That's a strong 4. Warren for 5 with a good couple of bench contributors, McConnell included. So, yeah, they are going to run it back. But they're going to run it back with, they hope, I make no judgment, a better coach. And as a result, plus better health means they could crack 50. And, yeah, it's going to be a good team regardless. You wouldn't want to face them.
No, yeah, I think they have overall great talent level. We've been talking about this on the pod as well. For some explicable reason, there seems to be a small movement against Sabonis, especially on social media platforms, which I don't really understand. I hope that the NBA doesn't share those sentiments. I think he is fantastic at what he does. I think there are flaws, obviously, but the positives heavily outweigh the negatives. I think he kind of fits with that team. I understand that he may not be the perfect fit with Miles Turner, but I mean, you can't have a perfect roster going ahead like for every 30 teams either way. So something's got to give.
It's hard for anyone to be a perfect fit for Miles Turner, because while in theory he is the Rafe LaFrentz of the piece, he's the rare, pure outside shooting, rim protecting 5. He's not that good enough of an outside shooter to be that. So you're always slightly fudging it with Turner. He's also not the one you're building around in the first place. So I wouldn't worry too much about his fit with Turner.
He's a right-handed Rafe LaFrentz.
As am I. Well, I mean, I'm 6'3" and 250 pounds. I think that's basically what I'm more of a Khalid El-Amin, but I'll take it.
What was it LaFrentz signed with Dallas? Didn't he sign like an $80 million deal when he got to Dallas back in the day? It was like they were ahead of he was ahead of the game. It's just in terms of being like a floor stretcher, shot blocker. He wasn't the greatest rebounder, and then he got to Dallas, and I think they paid up to retain him.
Do you know what? Because it's your show, I'm going to ask you a question, and the time it takes you to answer, I'm going to look that up for you, because I think it's something like 7 years and 90 million. So we'll have a look. Speaking of Dallas, they have roughly 14 million smackaroonies left to spend after the Hardway deal. If you were them, who you spend the money on?
So the guy I actually wanted is off the market for him. That was campaign. I think that would make sense.
Answer. Pick a better one.
Yeah, I didn't give you enough time. Well, you know what? Instead, I'll bring up a question here. Do you think anything will happen with Markkanen this free agency period? I think he'll get signed by somebody at some point.
Hang on. I answered your question with a question, and you've answered it with a question. That is meta.
Well, it's important. We have people chiming in with questions. I'm definitely going to make them a priority, more so than myself.
Oh, I no doubt there whatsoever. Carry on. Do you know, actually, this may have been what you were going on to say before I rudely interrupted for the 50th time. It might be a decent answer to the question of where'd you go for Dallas?
Oh,
7 years, 69,973,750. That's what Rafe LaFrentz got. So 7 years and 70, 10 per year, which back in the day was more than twice the MLE. So it was a lot of dosh.
Yeah. That was a big one. I remember that because I remember being completely blown away. So here's the thing with me, with Markkanen in Dallas. Like, do you then play him alongside Porzingis? Like, how would that pairing work?
It would only have to work for a few months before you dealt Porzingis.
So that begs the the question, is there a market for Porzingis? If so, what is the market?
Pass. It's not going to be great because the deal's enormous and he hasn't grown into it. But if you're looking at doing that anyway, which they could well be doing, then do not pass up on the opportunity to get the in-house replacement.
Right. It's actually leads me into a different question, which I think is also interesting. We hear a lot about people trying to gauge NBA contracts because a lot of people who aren't necessarily diehards are struggling figuring out what is an appropriate amount of money for a certain player. Like it's difficult to gauge right on the surface. And I think we could, if we're being pretty simplistic, like if a contract you sign is tradable, almost immediately tradable, and it has positive value, it's a good contract. If you have to give up assets to get rid of a contract, it's generally a poor one. I think it's simplistic, but is that a way you can frame it?
It is very difficult to gauge relative value. It is very difficult to know how much a player should be paid. It's something that takes a lot of background information, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of thought. So what we decided to do tonight was to give it no thought and do it straight off the bat for 2 straight hours. So, you know, we're not the right ones to ask.
Exactly. But still, we have a new one coming in here. Duncan Robinson has agreed to a 5-year, $90 million contract to stay with the Miami Heat. The deal is the largest ever for an undrafted player. It also includes an ETO after the 4th year.
ETOs. I think that's only the second one currently extant in the league. Excellent. You don't get those anymore. Is that more than Bertan's got? I think it is, isn't it? I think he got 85.
I think he got 580.
Do you know what? We'll look that up. I'll do you the decency of doing your homework for you.
Yep.
He got 5 years and 80 million. There you go.
Yep.
This is why you should subscribe, everybody. He knows what he's talking about. So Bertan's got that 80 with not a final year guarantee. I'm going to assume that Robinson does. So that's a decent raise on Bertan. So the only reason I use Bertan's as a comparison is because he's a very suitable one. And also, he doesn't just play the same, but he's about the same size. So it's a very good comparison. Robinson is younger, isn't he? He's Bertan's, I think, 28, 29. Robinson, a couple of years younger than that.
26 or 27.
26. Okay, so he may not grow into much more than he is already, but there's no reason to assume he's going to fall off a cliff anytime soon. It's amazing to think of Duncan Robinson as with respect, a very one-dimensional player as being worthy of 18 million a year, which is what this is going to be. But if you put the right offense around him, a Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo shaped offense that needs an unrelenting shooter and needn't take a dribble, that can work. Miami's cap situation is going to be pretty sticky, and they only just got out of the stickiness from their previous significant offseason spend, but they're all in. So if you can't go all in without Duncan Robinson.
And in the meantime, Torrey Craig has agreed to a 2-year, $10 million deal with the Indiana Pacers. I did not see that one coming.
Right, so they got him and not Drew, Justin Holiday on pretty much the same deal for pretty much the same role. Okay.
I wonder what happens to Doug McDermott now.
He walks.
Yeah, right? So where
I expect so.
Yeah.
I worry that then there's a little bit of superfluousness off the top of my head between Holiday and Craig. Excuse me. But and with Edmund Sumner as well, who's not entirely dissimilar. They do seem to be going for the plucky, defensive-minded backup wings. Perhaps they could do with a little bit of extra shooting, but you don't worry too much about Doug McDermott because he's not a needle mover. Perhaps, very optimistically, perhaps this is done with a view to dealing Holiday, who did play well last year and who could be easily retraded on a team-friendly deal with a kind of skill set that where you can plug and play into any lineup. That is in no way reporting. I just made that up based on the Torrey Craig news, but I suspect it's more likely they're just going to run with both as insurance for Levert.
Let us see. I am looking because they're so for people who are watching this, Mark and I are running on multiple monitors, and we have.
Oh yeah. That's why I'm never looking at Morton. We got all the news coming in over all the screens,
right.
And also look at the state of him. You don't look at that unless you have to.
Thank you. No, but let's see. I thought I saw another contract come up, but it wasn't. No, it was just rehashing the Duncan Robinson deal. 5 years, 90. What did Joe Harris get last year?
Oh Lord, I want to say 472. I'm going to look that up for you as
Right?
well. Let's have a look. He got.
Oh, we have Doug McDermott.
He got
We have
exactly 4 years, 72. What's Doug McDermott got?
he is going to the San Antonio Spurs, 3 years, 42 million.
Of course he is. Where else was he going to go? 3 years, 42 million.
Yeah.
So Joe Harris got 18 million per season, and Doug McDermott got 14 million per season.
Yeah.
One of these things is not like the other one.
Right. I wonder.
Well, he's not a bad player. Fair enough. I don't want to.
No, he's not.
Denigrate him, but why he's getting 150% of the MLE, I'm not sure about.
Right. Yeah, I think maybe it was the play-in tournament. He played fantastically, and that might have been because of the setting and whatnot. Like we know teams have at times a tendency to overreact to postseason basketball, or I don't even know if the play-in qualifies as postseason, but maybe there's some of that going on. He did have a better year. I think he had the best year of his career, really. But 14 million, that's tough to justify just for shooting. What does he give you?
Well, we've just justified it,
right, by Duncan
in the cases of Bertans and Duncan Robinson. But I've yet to see Doug McDermott make that kind of impact. Now, he's a positive overall player. I think he's an MLE caliber player. And even though he is, if he's not 30, he damn near is, he's got the kind of game that's going to age well because it's about movement and shooting. However, Harris in particular does more work with the ball in his hands. He can get to the rim. He plays better defense. McDermott just kind of doesn't really. More importantly, is he going to be as good with the Spurs, considering we have very little idea of what their offense is going to look like, losing both Aldridge and DeRozan? Who is their hub? Who is McDermott playing off of? So
DeJounte Murray, I presume?
Say that again, sorry?
DeJounte Murray, I guess.
Well, DeJounte Murray needs spacing, but do you want DeJounte Murray to be your primary half-court playmaker? I wouldn't. I think he's very good. I think you put him in the Lonzo Ball role that we just talked about. I don't think you lead the line with him. Same with Derek White, very good two-way player, but not a front-line penetrator and creator. Keldon Johnson, a very good role player on the wing. Already in the Olympics, the guy's good, but he is not your go-to guy. You can't just stop acquiring worthy and capable NBA players just because you haven't got a go-to guy yet. And the Spurs weren't exactly in the running for the few available ones out there. But I do think that's a bit too much for a complimentary player who doesn't have anyone to compliment coming off a career year in the prime years of his physical prowess. Oh, God, all in one breath again. This is amazing for an asthmatic, isn't it?
Well, one guy who is definitely not, in his prime of his career, but is still fantastic and productive is Chris Paul, who's agreed to a 4-year contract with the Phoenix Suns worth $120 million. So that's going to take him into his
So that's only $30 million a year.
Yeah, but over 4 though.
Yeah, but you're going to overpay the back end to keep open the title window. That's not in doubt. Who cares if he's playing at 10 million value in 2025 if you have a title window after so many years in the doldrums? Only 30 million a year. That's all it took. Opted out of 34, was it, to take 30? Good business. I'll tell you, so between the two of them, Phoenix have just given 7 years and 139 million to the two-headed point guard lineup that made waves for them. But they have lost Torrey Craig. Interesting.
Yeah. I wonder what the options situation is there. Whether there's a team option, if there's a non-guarantee. I think it's Chris Paul. Maybe there isn't.
I'd be surprised. You'd probably get a PO in the end, but that's complete guesswork. I have no reporting.
Right.
I've done my one piece of reporting for the year when I reported a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers Summer League team. That's me done.
Nice one.
Mm-hmm.
And you could sense my enthusiasm. So Penton is asking, who is going to max John Collins and when? Should he get maxed?
In the sense that it'll be the price of doing business, yes, not because he's necessarily worth it as a player, but you have to pay that to get him free from Atlanta. The Dallas that we just talked about isn't the worst shout.
No, but do they have enough?
Not as constructed after Hardaway. Who can they fiddle? They could potentially move off of Powell, whose spot Collins would take.
Right.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, New York, you can't really pair him with Randall. I don't know. I defer. Who do you think, Morten?
Like,
I'm going to interrupt you there and say that San Antonio would have been a decent shout.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That I actually wrote that about that for Forbes, just in terms of best fits, and I think Collins with the Spurs would have made more sense. I wonder if that money should still be there. I mean, if they signed McDermott to a deal, not starting at 14 million, it's probably going to start at what, 12 and a half?
Yeah, what were they working with going in? It was 40 something, wasn't it?
Yeah, 44, 46.
Well, that can be done, but you'd like to imagine that they would obviously, let's not even pretend to keep up the pretense that negotiations have only been going on for 49 minutes. But you would like to think that if they had a John Collins size move in the chamber, they wouldn't be leading with Doug McDermott. Who knows? Not a bad idea, though.
Yeah.
I would imagine it gets maxed because it will be difficult for Atlanta to pay everybody down the road, and already they're pretty deep and excessive. But if they're ever going to get anything for Collins, they're going to have to match him or outright signing themselves. So they wouldn't be signing him necessarily with a view to keeping him for the, let's say, 4 or 5 years that they would be tying into, but they would be able to thereafter trade him. So, yeah, the sign and trade is possible, but I suspect he'll probably re-sign. And I look forward to being wrong about that any minute now.
If there's a team out there who I'm looking at as being a candidate for a consolidation trade, it's Atlanta. I think they need it.
Yeah, you're going to get the law of diminishing returns from having so much depth, and that's just speaks to the fact that they have done some very strong talent acquisition, even things like the Rondo for Lou Williams trade. I think we can safely say they won that, but we've seen already with Cam Reddish, there's a lack of opportunities on the court. There's a lack of flexibility to pay them all down the road if things work out. It was totally worth getting in Gallinari and Bogdanovic and Clint Capella, but it does mean the money's been spent.
Right. So is one of the things that Brian and I have talked about in the podcast is, could the Hawks have enough bullets in the chamber to make a serious and legitimate offer for Bradley Beal if he becomes available? And right now, full disclosure, he doesn't appear to be.
Yes, but he, like you say, does not seem to be. And whilst as Atlanta, you want to have, of course, a second superstar who doesn't, it's hard to think of one that would fit worse alongside Trae Young than Brad Beal. So in the sense that he may be the one that comes available, yes, you want to be interested, you want to be in that bidding war, but in an ideal world, you'd bid somewhere else. I would say you don't turn down a player of Brad Beal's quality. Of course you don't, but you don't want 2 on the ball guards with questionable defense, I would think.
Does that matter when both of them could average 30 though?
Yes.
All right. I don't know if I agree. I don't know if I agree much. I think this year, I think we started to overestimate defense. Not saying defense isn't important. Don't worry. That's going to get aggravated. But aggregated is the word.
I don't think we're that popular, but carry on.
But I think at the end of the day, we're looking at, especially in playoff context, just how much value there is in shot creation, both for oneself, but in others too. Of course, defense is crucial, but when you have guys of that caliber in Trae and Bradley Beal who can break down defenses to the extent that they can, Trae in particular, we saw what he did against the Philadelphia 76ers. It just screams to me that offense needs to be prioritized if it comes down to it.
Which was the last NBA champion to start 2 bad defensive players in the backcourt? Exactly.
Well, I mean, so
who
at
won
the
last
time,
NBA title and why?
No. I'm going to say 2006, because at that point in time, Wade was not a nuanced defender by any stretch. He was reactive more so than anything else. He became a much better defender in years later, and then he was joined by Jason Williams in the backcourt. That was not a great defensive backcourt.
All right. So once every 15 years, lightning in the bottle. Look, I totally agree with you about the value of shot creation. I do. Why would you not? This is the era of the sizable roster who can play 5 out and get shot creation and ball handling for every position. I do understand that. And I'm not saying for a minute that I would not be scared of a Young and Beal backcourt. Who the hell wouldn't? Either of them can go for 50 every night. But I'm saying it's suboptimal for the way Atlanta's roster is constructed. Considering the Beal is not available right now, it appears it's not something I would worry about too much, because it's not as though they're picking from the litter of options. It depends on who becomes available and why these things can change very, very quickly. I just think it would not be the perfect fit between Young and Beal. I had to breathe that time. Didn't quite do it in one breath.
We have a question from Justin Bernard. What the hell are the Pels doing? Is it time to fire Griff? 53 minutes into free agency. It's apparently time to fire Griff.
Is this with reference to the Lonzo deal?
I think so.
It is certainly the case that they've lost the on the talent side there, and it is also the case that the previous trade for Valanciunas was partly tidying up the Bledsoe mistake. However, like you say, 53 minutes in, all we've heard about really, with respect to Satoransky and Temple, all we've heard about really is what is departing the Pelicans. Let's wait and see what comes back in first.
Let's see here. I agree. For the record, I am just browsing through the feed.
No, it's always a good strategy, I think, every time I say something, just nod your head and go, yep, I agree. Because even if I'm wrong, even if history proves me to be wrong, which I can't imagine would happen, I imagine everything I say is perfectly accurate, but even if I'm wrong, it A, flatters me as a guest, and B, buys you thinking time, and C, entirely puts the onus for failure on me, and you would just, playing the political game of being nice to your guests. So yeah, just get on the Deeks train, and I'll be sure to crash into the station.
Did you learn all of that at Countdown?
There's more to me than my nationality and my ability to spell within 30 seconds. Thank you very much. Also, we may only have 7 viewers, but none of them will get that reference. It's just me and you.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see. We actually the Bulls' real GM gang back together. I have no idea what this person is talking about.
Yeah, I've never used that site, so don't know what that's about.
Nope. See, now it's gone a little bit quiet. Someone blew their wad way too early. There hasn't been an update.
Well, we can make some things up. Can you believe? Can you believe the contract that Enes Kanter just got?
What is he going to get?
Well, you think okay, so you would think you'd get the Boban money for the Boban role. You would think. Offensive rebounder extraordinaire, soft touch, great defense, great rebounding rate, can't defend anybody. You would think there's a third string rotational center spot there. As Portland found out last season, if you give him a bigger role, which they had to due to the presence of Nurkic, but also due to a lack of options elsewhere, he will generally let you down because he cannot defend anybody. It's not through his lack of trying. He just hasn't got the speed or the length. He would have to go somewhere where he could play alongside an athletic option because Portland, having him, Nurkic, and Harry Giles, suffered on the interior defense because there was a bit of duplication there. Pass. I'm just going to keep saying pass.
Yeah, I love that the whole disclaimer only to lead up to pass. That's
well, that was me stalling for time. I don't think anyone noticed though.
Well, in that case, we have another question that can allow you to stall for time. You guys buy the DeRozan to the Bulls rumors, and that is from. Oh, I'm not even trying to pronounce that username. All right.
No, go on, try. Have some respect for your foreign listeners.
Grodo Boldo, I think.
I like it. Hello, Roldo. I doubt it. More to the question, do I like it? Well, DeRozan played as a 4 last year. Yeah. Now, I do think he could do that full-time going forward, but if he does it full-time going for Chicago, he's doing it alongside Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, probably Patrick Williams, and Nikola Vucevic. I don't think that's going to work. I think there's value in having that second shot creator, as we talked about. That would put Lonzo tertiary, which suits him well. Excuse me. And there could be a good 2-man game going on with LaVine. But I think you're going to have significant problems defensively that no amount of bench reinforcements will fix. I think he's on the wrong timeline for where the Bulls are going, and I don't see how they have the assets to get him. So I don't think it's going to happen. So look forward to that happening within the hour.
Even if it doesn't work to the extent that it will, and it only tops them out as like top 6 team in the East, it would be fun. Like we should probably remember that. Like the entertainment level of that Bulls team would at least beat every other Bulls team that we've had since, I don't even know when, like for a long ass time. That would be an entertainment lineup right there.
Well, if you think that matters, go for it. But
it has to matter somewhere. Like
it does, in the sense that you're selling a product, and if you're not going to win, you might as well have some fun doing it. But surely, the productive and fun way to be in the middle of the pack is to at least be on the way up. Can you say that DeRozan and Levine led team, especially as Levine heads into unrestricted free agency, would be that? You don't want to throw too much onto the prime timeline. They've already done so with Vucevic. Levine's near enough there. I appreciate he's still improving, but he's been around for a few years with serious injury. He's not going to have all that much time left to improve. You do always have to think about your timelines. And as young as Patrick Williams is, if you assume great things for him, which is generous but possible,
right?
You don't want him peaking at such a time that DeRozan's done.
I would agree with that.
Like I said, just agree with me, dude. Just agree with me.
Yeah.
Honestly, at this point, I'll take over the channel and you just like and subscribe.
But I will counter with this. If it's enough to get them into the 6th seed, if it's enough to give Zach LaVine his first taste of playoffs, if it's enough to give them just a somewhat competitive product, that could put them in the driver's seat for getting Zach back next year. It also could leave them on a high note in 2023 when they're widely expected to go after Nikola Jokic. Not saying they're going to get him, but that seems to be the play. I mean, is it that bad of a short-term plan?
No, depending on the price.
Right.
There's, for the right price, DeRozan is a worthy addition to any team, Chicago included. Like I said, I want to delineate between something being suboptimal and something being an outright bad decision. I think it would be suboptimal for Chicago to target DeRozan, but if he's there for the right price, go ahead. Why not? Yep. You can certainly resell someone. You're not constructing your future today. So yes, it's entirely price dependent, which is another cop-out answer, but it is true. I don't think it will happen, but for the right price, I wouldn't mind if it did.
So I don't remember if we had monetary value on the Kyle Lowry contract with Miami, but that is 3 years, $90 million, which is pretty much what we all expected. That's what he wanted.
Well, then that's the same per annum as Chris Paul. Who would you rather have?
Right. No, Paul for sure.
And I'm sure Miami would if they could have done as well. Yeah, I mean, considering you were paying 19.4 for Dragic, then 30 million for Lauri is a significant upgrade for an only 150% price increase. Excuse me. Yes, fine. It ties in with what we know. It ties in with what we expected, and everything I said about Lauri in the Heat earlier still applies.
And we have a comment here that suggests that you are not the only countdown lover here, because Harry Davidson says, "Rest in peace, Richard Whiteley."
Rest in peace, Richard. He was the original host, and he's dead. Hence the rest in peace.
Well, I could have figured. Well, thank you for the clarification.
I didn't kill him or anything. He died of natural causes. I had nothing to do with it, Your Honor.
I mean, the fact that you even need to clarify that makes it a little bit suspicious.
Well, I wouldn't have brought it up. You can blame Harry Davidson for that.
Justin Bernard writes, Griff's mistakes. Bad move with Adams, Bledsoe. Didn't get much for So, unless there's more coming in. Haven't drafted particularly well, except for Zion.
And Kira Lewis, surely.
Right, that's what I was going with, and like Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Nickeil Alexander-Walker, even better. That's an excellent player. I take your point in that from the initial position he got them in after finally trading Anthony Davis, pivoting, getting Zion, and looking at it's going to be a great future, it hasn't aligned in the 12 months hence. However, he got them into that position. He made some good draft picks. You can't credit someone for picking Zion. It's the easiest thing in the world to do, but you can credit Walker. You can credit Lewis. All right, the Bledsoe thing was a mistake, but at least got off that mistake without it being a terminal problem. The Adams extension didn't really work out, but again, he got off of that. But still getting back Valanciunas, who's really good, let's remember. So, yes, they didn't get much for Zoe. They clearly didn't think he would be the fit. They certainly knew that Bledsoe wouldn't be, but Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Kira Lewis, they might be. Is it Kyra? I keep calling him Kira.
Kyra.
Yeah, I always get names wrong, man, because I never say them out loud because I live in England. I just see them written down. So for me, it's always been Kira, which is also the name of my niece. So sorry, Kyra.
And another question from Justin, who's very active in the comment section. I appreciate that. Definitely come in and ask questions, all of you, which is right here. Does Cameron Payne need a new agent? Mark?
Well,
that's putting you on the spot, isn't it?
In the sense that he perhaps could have got more related to some of the contracts we're seeing other people get, you could make the case that he may have left some money on the table. But Phoenix rebirthed him. They literally plucked him out of the G League. Remember when he was with Chicago, and I do not mean this disrespectfully, even if it may sound savage, he forgot how to play. He had a crisis of confidence. He brought the ball up the court and then went, ah! He lost what he was doing. He was not a huge impact player defensively. He still isn't the best outside shooter. He stopped attacking. He was just there. And he fell out. He fell out of the league despite Chicago targeting him, trading a nice package of things to get him due to the links there with his former coach, and they couldn't convert that. He fell out of the league. He fell out of the G League. Phoenix brought him back. He was good for them in the bubble. He was good all of last year. He was good in the finals. He was a key player on the second best team in the league. If he feels like he owes them, you can understand it.
There you go. And this is now there's a question coming in, Mark, that I think we have to dedicate some time to, because obviously one of the major subplots of this summer has been Ben Simmons and whether or not he should be traded and whatnot. So this is from Lander Goose 23. I simply don't have the creativity of finding out, like typing out these screen names for myself either. So kudos for people with way more creativity than I do. What do you think? What do you guys think of a trade of Zach LaVine for Ben Simmons and Bradley Beal with draft picks and young players going to the Wizards?
Zach LaVine for Ben Simmons and Bradley Beal.
I'm not pretty sure how that's worded, but I think ultimately it's a three-way deal, right?
So we're talking LaVine to the.
No, actually, I think he means that if you're giving up Bradley Beal, you should get both Ben Simmons and Zach LaVine. So that should be the end goal. Lander Goose, if you're still watching this, hit us up in the comments below. Elaborate a little bit. So he says yes. Okay, so he is saying that Zach LaVine and Ben Simmons should both go to the Wizards for Bradley Beal.
As apparently do draft picks and young players. So you're getting a hell of a lot there. You're getting 2 all-stars or near enough all-stars plus draft picks and young players, 2 young all-stars, I might point out, for 1. So, I mean, if you're the Wizards, you don't want to trade Beal, but if that's on the table, yeah, you do.
Yeah. So I think the larger issue is just overall Ben Simmons, right? Like, what is the deal? Like, we have seen so many reports. I can't even remember all of them off the top of my head. So we're seeing reports that Philly is insisting on 4 first-round draft picks, 4 swaps. I think the swap option is a little bit overrated, but fine. And players and other reports are basically saying, oh, he doesn't even have anywhere near that value. Where do we land on Ben Simmons value-wise, and where should he go? Just break it down.
Well, all the picks plus all your options package that has become on vogue has been dealt now for, and do correct me if I'm wrong, Paul George, James Harden, and Jrue Holiday.
Right.
Ben Simmons isn't those 3. However, if you don't ask, you don't get. It's a negotiating position. It is a statement that we don't have to do this. Whether it's true or not remains to be seen. It certainly seems as though they have to do something about the Simmons-Embiid situation. Excuse me. And Embiid's not going to be the one to move. That's how it seems from the outside. That also seemingly is what some of the leaks are saying. But the price being demanded is a repudiation of that. Now, they won't get it, but how close can they get to it? Remember how desperate teams get. They really do. If you want the guy and someone else wants the guy, your job is on the line. GMs are on short-term contracts by and large. There's an impatience there. If Philly are patient, and they have reason to be, they can get something close to that price. Not because he would deserve it necessarily, but because they can. The market has been set for this picks plus options thing. Of course, going back in the day, the Boston Celtics Brooklyn Nets deal was hugely ridiculously one-sided in favor of Boston. That kind of deal hasn't been pursued since until now with George, Harden, and Holiday. Now, in theory, all trades should be win-win. In the case of Holiday, it looks like both have, because New Orleans got a lot of picks for a player that couldn't really fit, and Milwaukee got a title. Win-win. Brooklyn will be hoping for the same. The Clippers will be hoping for the same, both with realistic chances. No one's giving that up for Simmons because he's not going to tip the balance for you to win a title, but he is a young two-way player. Okay, he's very limited in what he does offensively in the half court, but he is at least a dynamo in the full court with excellent passing vision and one of the best defenders in the league. He's worth a lot. He's not worth that much, but don't take it as gospel that that is a demand. It is a position. It is a position in a free agency period that's been going on for 68 minutes. They don't have to do this deal in August. They don't have to do it in September. They don't have to do it to the deadline. They don't have to do it at all. If they keep the price up, someone will get closer to it than you would imagine. And that's what I think we're seeing right here.
In the meantime, we have a couple of news bits here. So Jeff Green has signed a 2-year, $10 million deal with the Denver Nuggets, which that's actually interesting. I thought that he would sign for the Mint to remain in Brooklyn to like basically feed off of everyone else. And Sterling Brown, which has been rumored for days now, has agreed to a 2-year deal. I haven't seen monetary value on this yet with the Dallas Mavericks.
I imagine in the case of Brown, that'll be probably for the room exception. I suppose it could be for the minimum. Either way, it will not make an impact on their cap space if it's either of those, because of course the room exception is added on afterwards, and the minimums you can sign when you're over the cap. So that just looks like a depth piece, someone who's going to play the role that Wes Iwundu was supposed to take last year, but do it better because Brown is better than Iwundu. Fair enough. With regards to Jeff Green, okay, so a permanently enigmatic player, as we know, someone who simultaneously does a bit of everything and nothing consistently, who oscillates between good years and bad years. Last year was a good year. Last year was a good fit in Denver. Where the hell does he play? Is he the backup to Miles Plumlee? Excuse me. Is he the backup to Michael Porter, MP? It's very confusing. I'm a very stupid man. Is he the backup to Michael Porter, who plays in a similar style on a much worse basis? Yeah, probably. In which case, do you need that? Look, it's not a bad price. It's $5 million $5 million per annum for a man who can, on his day, make a big difference to the game. On his day, you think, "Oh man, I'm glad we got Jeff Green." On his bad days, for $5 million, you're not obliged to play him. But Denver doesn't have a huge amount of wiggle room here. He's probably just taken Millsap's salary slot, and whilst he will do so in a very different way to Millsap, I think history has proven that if you give Jeff Green more than the minimum, it can go wrong. But it can't go that wrong at $5 million per, so we'll see.
Right. Yeah, I think the entire concept of a $5 million salary now is drastically different than just from a few years ago, where that was a significant chunk of your cap space. Now it's not as much. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I think he'll play off of Jokic pretty well. I could see him get some level of success there. And we have a new contract coming in as well. David Nwaba is signing a 3-year, $15 million deal to stay with the Houston Rockets. So Nwaba gets paid.
Yeah, and if he stays healthy, it's great value. It's the same $5 million that Jeff Green's getting for a better two-way player. So, yes. How many games did Nwaba play last year? Because I know he was injured the year prior.
That is a good question that I will.
No, you won't. I will, because I'm way ahead of the game on this one. David Nwaba played in 30 games. Now, Houston was shutting everybody down, but in those 30 games, he posted 9 and 4 with his usual defense and athleticism. He is good in transition. He's better as a shooter. He's not great, but he's good enough to hit the open ones from the corners and the wings. He will have resale value at that price. He'll give you a better and I think younger version of Daniel House. So, yeah, nice business.
And he was the second best player on the Bulls just 4 years ago. 4?
To be fair, you were third. I mean, it wasn't a great year for the Bulls.
No, it really
You were good that year, actually. I don't know why. I don't care what they say about you.
So we already touched on this a little bit, but Christopher seems to be a little bit late to the party. Doug McDermott to the Spurs. How do you like that? Let's just reiterate a little bit here. The money we weren't crazy about, and we were a little bit suspicious about the fit, but he will help them from just in the area of 3-point shooting, because that they didn't really have a whole lot of that at the very least.
Yeah, however, a team that seriously needs a talent infusion and some upside and some hope for the future just signed a 30-year-old backup. So it's not great.
So here's a deal that's come on. And a couple months ago, I asked you what you thought the value of Mo Harkless was. And you told me surely no more than a minimum. Yeah. And you said surely no more than a minimum. He just signed a 2-year deal with the Kings worth $9 million.
Fine. I don't really see why, but okay.
Nope. Yeah.
He's not a bad player, but he does not he's so spotty offensively as to not be a
Right.
reliable floor raiser, and I wish he had the nuance and well, I won't say the size because he's not much shorter, but I wish he was Luke Richenbaum Mute because it sounds like they're going to pay him like he is. He's fine, but I think he's a replacement level player. He's now being paid not far short of the taxpayer Emily. I think he's worth the minimum, but loose maths, maybe they can do that just using his non-bird rights. So yeah, whatever. I appreciate that's not a very incisive opinion. It's certainly not the kind of thing that literally dozens of people tune in for, but it is the best one I can give, which is just, yeah.
No, but I think that's a fair conclusion. Whatever that is how I felt watching that. Like he does not move the needle a whole lot. He does give you some positional defensive ability. Like he is somewhat fluid. He can even play the 5 in limited spot minutes here. There is something to like there, but it's just not a whole bunch. And in the meantime, we got monetary value on Sterling Brown. It's a 2-year contract worth $6.2 million.
So that's the room exception, basically. So yeah, they can do that after cap space aspirations. So that's fine.
And the Mavericks are nearing a deal with Knicks free agent Reggie Bullock. No monetary value has yet been offered. But
okay, that's a surprising one.
I know that he was looking for the full non-tax MLE, though. Like,
well, if they give him that amount, then they just spent their cap space on the backup to Hardaway.
Right.
So we'll see. Monetary value will make a difference there. Reggie Bullock is a player that can help any team, especially when he got his health back last year. He proved that he still got it, that he can shoot and hold his own out there. Lord knows it's the era of shooters, especially ones in a nice frame like his. But I don't know if that's the ideal match of team and fit. But he's a good player, so there we go. Who knows?
And we have a question from Mark Travis. Which Spurs reserve is a better fit for the Lakers, Rudy Gay or Patty Mills?
Interesting.
Mills, sure, right?
On account of the fact that Gay looks he looks more I won't say done because he still brings something defensively, but the fact that he looks much more slowed offensively, I would suggest Mills, who's still got it as he's proven for Australia right now. Yes, also he has that bit of dynamic bench scoring. Wouldn't want to overly block Taylor Horton-Tucker, but yes, I suggest probably Mills. Gay would have value though. He can play across the front court. He would need to get his shot back off, but it might just be a 1-year aberration.
And from Nils Freeball, how good players can the Heat get? When are they going to fill the rest of the team? Who should they target? What do they need? This is very Heat-centric. Basically, fix the Heat. I think they already did. Yeah, I think they
just about that. Yeah, out of nowhere, off the cuff, without even being able to keep up to date. You're mistaking me, Niels, with a professional. But I'll give it a crack. So we're looking now at Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson, Bam Adebayo. Who am I missing? Kendrick Nunn is still outstanding, isn't he? Okay, then you're looking. Morton, help me out. Who am I missing? You got Precious Achiuwa off the bench.
Yep.
In theory,
was he not going to get moved? That the word was that he was going to get moved in a deal. We haven't seen the full framework of the Kyle Lowry sign and trade yet. So Precious.
Well, I was relying on you for that. I haven't seen it said either way. The same with Tyler Hero.
Tyler Hero. We also need to kill that rumor, right? Or that report coming out that the Heat wouldn't include Tyler Hero in a deal for Harden. I don't believe that for a second. Like, it's James Harden, man. Of course you include Tyler Hero. So
yes, we've seen how for several years now, including the last 12 months, we've seen how much the Heat want to operate in the here and now and go for it ASAP. So you don't pass up Harden for Hero. That's posturing on the part of either the agent or the team or someone, but it cannot be true. Niels, would you mind awfully if we deferred on your question right there until we know what's going out in lieu of in place of Kyle Lowry? Because until we know what that is, we don't know what they're working with. They will certainly need some depth, and I wouldn't mind some fresher legs off the bench, particularly in the backcourt, but that's a bit abstract at this time until we know what's going outbound. It could be Hero, it could be none, it could be both, it could be neither, it could even be Oladipo, who knows? So let's defer on that one for the moment. What I would say is there's no real need to pay a 42-year-old Udonis Haslem to play 3 minutes a year.
Right. So we have two questions that are both about Jarrett Allen. So we have the first one here from J Money High Tech, who says pretty shocked by the Jarrett Allen deal. And then we have this one from Justin. Once again, why are teams still giving centers who can't shoot $20 million per year deals?
You mean like Rudy Gay?
Oh, sorry.
Not Rudy Gay. Sorry, like Rudy Gobert. My sassy comment was my sassy comment was mistaken by getting the name wrong. Still, never mind. We'll cut that. We'll put that on the edit. In theory, yes. However, let's talk about who are the sweet shooting 5 men who also defend the rim, because that's the unicorn these days. That's what we want, isn't it? Who actually is it? Miles Turner, sort of, not a great shooter. Brook Lopez, the poster boy, not a great shooter. Right. Who is this hallowed person that does the both?
There are two in the pipeline.
There are. Town, yeah. Towns in theory, but we know he's not the best defender. He's better around the rim than on the perimeter, certainly, but he's not a deal.
And then Bam Adebayo.
Right. Well, he's a way off being the rangy part of that. Yeah. Right. Evan Mobley potentially down the road, but that is all down the road. In the here and now, who is it? There aren't many. We look for them. We don't have them. That's why PJ Tucker gets traded for a first-round pick at the age of 56 or whatever it is, because there aren't many. So if you can't have someone who's both, there's still value in having one of the two. Jarrett Allen is not the ultimate rim protector, but that athleticism means he will forever be a presence. He runs the court. He has a good rebounding rate. He offers vertical spacing. If that sounds like Rudy Gobert, then whilst without the two being exactly the same as players, they will have similar impacts. They'll be used in a similar way. The hope will be that Allen could get something close to Gobert's status. Gobert is, of course, a phenomenal player in a way that Allen would have to achieve his absolute optimum projection to fulfill. But you don't have to just be a shooter. You can impact the game in other ways. Jarrett Allen does that. And consider also the fact that this is Cleveland, who do not have a great deal of incumbent talent on the roster, who do not have much hope of being able to get it in the traditional free agent sense, and who don't even have all that much in the way of future assets when compared to peers, in particular, of course, the Oklahoma City Thunder. What they got was Allen for cheap via trade. They have to keep that. Even if it doesn't work out down the road, they can only trade him if they've got him. So they gave Allen $20 million because he may go on to be a £20 million player, or he may go on to be a £15 million player who still plays the most difficult spot to fill in the league with an athletic prowess that is still hard to find even at the NBA level. So, yeah, resale value. He also, in theory, could learn to shoot. He threatened to do so in his time at Brooklyn. It didn't pan out long term, but my God, there's a long way to go. So it's not impossible that he becomes a corner spotter upper, maybe even a straight on pick and popper. So I'm very okay with the Jarrett Allen deal.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I'm pinning my hopes on in terms of his offensive development. Really, I mean that shot is not broken. That shot has potential. It can go out there eventually. I'm not saying he's gonna be, Karl Anthony Towns from three or anything insane, but if he can go out there and take, 4 or 5 threes per game, hit it at 35%, that's a game changer. I mean, it doesn't take much.
Yeah, I don't think he's being paid on the assumption or projection that will become a thing. Right. However, it might. He's being paid based on what we already know that he does well, which is be a roll man, get to the rim, protect it going the other way, and in theory, defend in space, something he needs to do better at, but which he has the tool to be good at.
Holy crap. All right, this one I did not see coming. I thought Bobby Portis would return to the Bucks, and he has, but this is on the most team-friendly deal.
I've just seen it. Yeah.
2 years, $9 million. This is extraordinary value for the Bucks. Portis, I think could have done a lot better, but you know what? He loved his time in Milwaukee. He's in this, man. I love that.
Well,
2 years, 9.
Yeah, we know there's not the same enormous amount of cap space as there's been in the last couple of years. So there's not the enormous money sitting out there that there has been in the past. So who's to say he probably may not have been getting the 3-year, $30 million offers or whatnot. At the same time, oh yeah, $4.5 million for a skilled and enthused backup who wants to be there, who can make a difference off the bench, who in theory can win you games, warts and all. That's a steal, son.
That's a real good.
It's good to be at the top, isn't it? It's good to be the team that everyone's watching that wins. Yes, it's rare territory for Milwaukee historically, but it's certainly where they're at right now, and they're using that leverage to get themselves a sweet deal.
And it does have a second-year player option. He's obviously going to opt out of that and then probably sign. What's he eligible? 175% of that deal, right?
It will be that or 105% of the MLE, which will be about 11 million this time next year. So he'll get paid next time.
Yeah, he definitely will. And also we have
Gary Trent. Sorry,
Gary Trent as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, but we have Korkmaz, who's agreed to stay with the Philadelphia 76ers, 3 years, 15 million. He's a shooter and not a whole lot else. I think that's reasonable.
So we've now seen 5 million per annum for David Nwaba, Furkan Korkmaz, and Jeff Green. Yep. Which of those two would you rather have?
Nwaba, probably.
Who's the second?
Korkmaz.
The prosecution rests.
Right. Yep.
No, that's fine. He's a ninth man who's now going to be paid like a ninth man, who fulfills a need for that specific team, and who can always be dealt. So, yeah, that's fair enough.
So let's get to Gary Trent Jr. He signed a 3-year deal worth $54 million. You know, just as an aside, looking at all these salaries all the time and the new contracts coming in, just don't look at your own bank account for at least a week. Just don't. You're going to get depressed. Just live in this alternative reality for at least a week until you start dealing with your own financials, because, good Lord. This is a good deal, by the way. This is a really good deal. He's got defensive upside. He's a very good shooter. I like this one. He's not got a whole lot of off-the-bounce game. I don't think he ever will, but I do think he will get better in that regard because he's still young. What is he, 22? I don't even think he's 23 yet. So you're also paying him in part for upside. It's less than 20 million in a year. I don't have any gripes with this one.
Yeah, I still don't really get that trade that got him to Toronto in the first place, but it's certainly after getting him in that way, it certainly was worth paying the price to keep him. That is a fair price. Yeah, so 18 million is Joe Harris money for a man who hasn't had a CV quite as long as that, but he could certainly go on to be that caliber of player. He's not far short of it already. He really is a very good shooter, and as we know, shooting is the name of the game these days.
Right. And I think he showed a little bit more than just, being a shooter.
Yeah. I didn't mean to imply that he didn't. It's the greatest strength of his game. He's a high volume, high efficiency outside shooter, but there's a little bit more going on there. And I think, like you say, 21-22, he came out after his freshman year, didn't he? So, there could very well be more to come.
And we got some contract details with Chris Paul. So only the first 2 years are fully guaranteed. Third year is a partial. I don't know to what extent. And fourth is non-guaranteed.
Okay. Well, good, because that means if it is overpaid in the back end, they'll have got what they needed prior to that. So it just gets a little better.
It really does. I mean, this is a good deal for Phoenix. This is a really good deal for Phoenix.
Yep, it is. I agree.
It really goes to show if you're winning, like you said, you can get so many benefits also in the open market afterwards. I mean, just the loyalty factor, the fact that you're winning, the fact that you're a proven winner, it opens up a door that I would have to assume otherwise would be closed. So, I mean, we're already seeing it with Bobby Portis coming back at that salary. We're seeing with Campaign signing a great contract. This is, winners benefit.
And even if you don't choose to stay, you can get a pay bump like Torrey Craig just from being on show at the climax of the season. So, yeah.
This is true.
Who would have thought that it would be the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns who we're talking about as being the ones you go to make your name? Not for Chris Paul, obviously. But you know what I mean.
Full disclosure, I'm just glad we haven't seen a whole lot of Lakers chatter with the whole let's get Kyle Lowry in for the non-tax MLE. Let's get DeMar DeRozan in.
That's true. There must be some harakiri going on. The fact that they've missed out thus far. They've missed out even on Portis, but they missed out on Lowry. I mean, I guess there's fingers crossed for Kawhi, but no, I could not see prior to the magical 11 p.m. And I certainly can't see now the Lakers making a big free agency splash. They've made their splash. They made it with Westbrook. Now they've got to pad it out. Right. They will have seen some potentially very useful role players for them go. I'm talking Reggie Bullock, who's a lot better than when he was previously a Laker. I'm talking Oubre, who's better than when he was previously a Laker. Things that they could use are going. They're going to have to make a splash at some point soon so as to not be preposterously frail going into next season. But they were never going to make a big splash anyway. And sorry to the fan base, whom I wish not to aggravate, but whom it appears to be quite easy to do so by mistake.
So that also raises another question about Dennis Schroder.
You love bringing up Dennis Schroder, don't you? Hit it.
Well, I wrote an article about him at Forbes. Basically, I looked at his synergy numbers, and I was very disheartened to learn that my eye test was accurately measured, because he was exceedingly average in almost every single category. And I think it was just such a weird thing to see that he, first and foremost, was offered 4 years and $84 million, but even more weird that he turned it down. I can't for the life of me understand what went through his mind rejecting that deal, because surely he's not going to get that deal in the open market this year. I'm saying, realizing that I just jinxed myself, and in approximately 25 minutes, something is going to pop up that's going to make me look like an idiot. But reasonably, that type of money shouldn't be out there for him, right?
Remind me when he turned that down. I can't remember. Was it last summer or midway through last
year? I think it was around December.
So not long after the season had begun.
Right.
Because he was good in 2019-20. He obviously played in the same way, but he did so much more effectively. Now, that way is flawed. He's never been the greatest outside shooter. Defense is spotty at best. But in theory, he's a pick-and-roll manipulator at the NBA level that is worth something. Turning down $84 million in presumably in hopes of getting something better. Yeah, good luck with that. Now, however, he could well be on the hook for a return to Los Angeles, because they need him now. They need someone to who can alleviate some of the pressure from LeBron, who obviously they've got that in Westbrook, but they need more than that. They need LeBron to have much less of a half-court offensive role if they're to have a further title window throughout the duration of his career. So much as Schroder is not, to overuse that term, a needle mover, he's all right, and the Lakers might have to keep him, which might result in an overpay. Not 4 years, $84 million overpay, but an overpay. Right.
So now we have a curious one. The San Antonio Spurs has signed Zach Collins to a 3-year contract worth $22 million.
Well, for a healthy Zach Collins, it's a good price, but when did we last see that?
We saw that in one of the opening games in Dallas 2 years ago, because that's when he went down and hasn't been the same since.
That's a contract made on a prayer, because obviously contracts should be made for the future, not the past. But Zach Collins thus far has earned the minimum. Now, when he was healthy, he was good. He was playing largely out of position at a 4, where he's got the build of a 5. But we were talking, were we not, a couple of times already about who is the stretch 5 who can space the floor on one end and protect it the other. He, in theory, has those tools. But in 4 years, he hasn't been that. He hasn't been healthy. He hasn't been standout in any one aspect of the game. The shooting is more theoretical than results-based at this time. And it does largely come back to health. I don't know how there was a bidding war enough to get him up to $22 million. On the plus, it is the kind of thing the Spurs should be doing, because they need upside. They are a good place for redraft candidates, because they're at such a talent disparity themselves. And I don't hate the deal. I just don't know why it's $22 million and not, 12 or 6 or something. But it could pay off. It's going to have to at that price, but it's a better deal than the McDermott one.
And this might be the perfect time to raise this question from Scouting Football. I read Heat offered sign and trade Iggy for DeRozan, but San Antonio Spurs rejected because they had a better offer. Sign and trade for Lauri, and then he means Markkanen, with Zach Collins and Doug McDermott now in-house on those salaries, and especially the positions that they play. I have to assume that door is shut on Lauri Markkanen as a Spur I can't see a scenario wherein that makes sense.
Well, I wouldn't shut the door based on the acquisitions of Doug McDermott and Zach Collins, 2 backups. So I would say that door should remain open. It's certainly a better deal than Iguodala would be. Iguodala does nothing for San Antonio. So I wouldn't shut the door on that. I don't.
So you wouldn't shut the door on another backup in Lauri Markkanen?
Ooh, feisty. It's all relative. He's better than Zach Collins. I appreciate that you and many a Bulls fan are a bit disenfranchised with Lauri Markkanen, and he hasn't improved, and it hasn't been a particularly savoury 2 years for him personally in the fit within that team. But there's still something worth having there. There's still a 7-foot sweet shooter with diversified offensive skills with upside. He hasn't realised it yet, but his floor's pretty high. So I think it's definitely a deal worth doing for San Antonio. And I'm not convinced from Chicago's point of view that I'd rather have DeRozan than Lauri. I appreciate most will disagree, but I'm nothing if not wrong a lot. So who knows?
So the Sacramento Kings, who are in much fear of losing Richaun Holmes to free agency, and I sort of understand that because Richaun Holmes is good, has signed Alex Len to a 2-year deal, which essentially works as insurance, I would imagine, for in the event that Holmes does not return.
They had Len before, didn't they? They got him as a part of the Jabari Parker deal, and
right,
I don't know
what him.
Well, I don't know what they're expecting to get that they didn't get before. He's fine. Why Toronto signed him last year to a chunk of the MLE and then almost immediately waived him, I don't know. But he went to Washington and was about the 6th center on their depth chart. But because everyone got injured, he got a few minutes. And Alex Len is what Alex Len always is. He's fine. He's all right. He's not bad. He's reliable. He's not spectacular. He does not move your needle. He does not hurt your team. He's fine. Is that purely insurance for Holmes? You'd have to imagine so because you don't look at Alex Len and see upside. But is it the kind of way they want to go? I don't know. It's like the Mo Harkless deal. It's
meh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, which I don't think Sacramento's in a position where they can be making too many meh deals. But Alex Len's not a bad player, so whatever. Let's wait for the monetary value.
Mike Muscala has agreed on a 2-year contract worth $7 million to return to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Well, you wouldn't have picked that last year. No, he had a decent year in amongst the very disjointed nature of the team around him, with everyone in and out of the lineup and trades all over the show. So yeah, decent reward there. Lord knows Presti's always liked him. You may remember the summer that Oklahoma City signed him. He was the first port of call for Sam Presti. This was back when Paul George was on the market. So yeah, they've always liked him, and he came through for them with some decent play last year in amongst a sea of turmoil. Considering that roster spot will forever be a premium, it's perhaps ambitious, but it's a good price. Carry on, sir.
No, but how old is he? Like 27, 28?
104? I don't know. Let's have a look. I think he's probably 30. He came out of Bucknell in 2013. I think he was a senior, so that might put him early 30s. 30.
Okay, 30 straight on. Well, see, that's the argument right there for also bringing in a vet, because that team is young. That team is very young. They're going to need someone like him to just not have a house party all the time.
Yeah, but if you want, and if you want young ball handlers and creators to learn how to navigate the pick and roll at the NBA level, it's nice to have a pick and pop and roll threat, like Mike Muscala. So yeah, don't disagree.
Oh yeah, that took me back to the process Sixers that just kept putting in big men and not realizing you need a point guard to actually give them the ball. That was unfortunate.
Well, if both halves of the pick and roll are learning at the same time, every time, it's not going to be optimal for development. So it is good to have a couple of well-placed, heady vets. Muscala doesn't do a huge amount on the NBA court beyond shoot the ball, but he doesn't make many errors. He understands positioning. He offers the floor spacing threat. That's fine. Whether he sees out the 2 years remains to be seen. But if he does, it's fine. Roster spot crunch is coming up, but not to the point that it should prohibit this. And that was my belly rumbling, if anyone heard that.
All good. We only have 23 minutes to go, Mark. After that, you can go grab.
Oh, thank God. Have we reached 5 viewers yet?
We have 33 tuning in currently. Wow. Yeah.
That's almost 1 million, isn't it?
So close.
We should definitely have licensed this, got the money up.
So, well, so far it seems that we have a little break in the action. Nothing has really popped up in at least 5 minutes, which on first night of free agency is almost like that's halftime. How would you gauge the money that's been spent so far this evening? Like, just in terms of have they been spent wisely?
Generally, yeah, nothing too egregious like we've seen in years past, but then there couldn't be because there isn't the same prevalence of cap room due to the impact of the TV deal long having burnt out and the COVID factor. So there hasn't been enough room to make the mistakes that we've seen from 2016 onwards. And I would say that by and large, on a minimal, impulsive perspective, I'm all right with most of them. Not all of them, but most of them. How about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't think there's been anything too egregious. I do think the Zach Collins contract has potential to be bad. I hope that I'm wrong. I always root for players to flip their narratives, especially if they've struggled with injuries. So hopefully he, reaches the Spurs and just starts to throw down. That would be great. So in the meantime, by the way, Trevor Ariza has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. No words yet on monetary factor, but I can't assume that it's for major money simply because of their cap situation first and foremost. And he's 186 years old at this point. So what seems reasonable for him?
I'm just trying to work out the average age of their starting lineup.
Yeah.
So you're looking at probably. Wait, can you play him at start? I imagine you got to bring him off the bench, but hypothetically, let's pretend he's your starting two, which would be a problem. We'll come back to that. So you can have Westbrook, Ariza, LeBron, Davis, and either Gasol or Dwight Howard is apparently going to be a thing. That's that. Yeah. Loose back of the envelope calculations is an average starting age of 44. That's quite old. But it's the kind of move they need to make. He is the kind of player, as we know, who fits effortlessly into his role, this being the Danny Green role. He's aged quite well precisely because he doesn't rely on the dynamicism like he used to in his youth. He spots up, he defends, he gets in the way. He's fine. Not a needle mover, a floor raiser. He has, however, been getting huge contracts in this Indian summer of his. He got 15 million with Phoenix. He got 12 million from Sacramento, traded to Miami, and he hasn't nearly lived up to that kind of dosh. So I hope he has received a fraction of that here for this to be a good move. It's the kind of move that the Lakers should be making. It's the kind of move I think we expected them to make, but it does depend on how much of their limited flexibility and financial wherewithal they have spent on a man who will only back up their best player.
Right. So we actually got a question about 45 minutes ago, which I completely missed until now.
Well, we've got so many viewers, it's hard to keep up, isn't it? I mean, when the comments are coming in their thousands, I mean, we really should have got a PA, but again, that would cut into our substantial fees.
I know, and our production budget.
Yeah, I'll invoice you later.
This is Emil asking, so what will happen in Portland? Are they going to land someone great, or is Lillard going somewhere else? I mean, we haven't even spoken about Damian Lillard yet on this show. This is obviously, again, one of the major subplots of this summer. What is going to happen to Dame? Is he going to get traded, or are they going to hang on to him and try to build something around him? Preferably, the Portland Trail Blazers would prefer the secondary one, but what kind of scenarios are even in play to upgrade the roster around him?
I don't think he's going to move this summer. Ask me again in January.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. They're going to take their time, I think, because they're in no rush. Well, how many years he's got left? Like 3 at least, right? If not 4.
Stall for time for 10 seconds, and I'll tell you.
Well, in the meantime, I can tell you that
I would know this, but we're amateur. He is signed through. He's signed through 2025, the last year of which is a PO, so 3 guaranteed.
All right. Well, in the meantime, see, I was trying to stall for time, but you didn't even allow me that because Wayne Ellington has also signed with the Los Angeles Lakers.
Again, that's the kind of move they're going to make. The average age they're going to be the oldest team in the league by far, but he is a spot-up shooter who does what he does. Presumably he's come for cheap. He will not get in the way. He will space the court. for those who need the space. So, yeah, that's fine. I would be curious to get monetary values on the him and Ariza deals as soon as.
And we have a question from Harry Davidson again. Dinwiddie, Fournier, and Powell. Best guess where they all go.
Do you know
well,
what?
Fournier's been rumored to New York.
Completely forgot about Spencer Dinwiddie. I think we mentioned him in the first 2 minutes and then moved on. Who's got?
Well, he was rumored to Washington, no, and then that kind of lost a little bit of traction.
Dinwiddie, yeah. I mean, that was on the proviso that Beal was on the move, but I don't see that he would be. So I look forward to waking up to that news tomorrow. Who's got space left? I'm drawing a blank.
Well, so actually the Spurs can clear $30 million by renouncing DeRozan, Patrick Mills, and Rudy Gay. So, I mean, theoretically, they could be a candidate. Powell is still under contract. Oh, it's normal Powell, obviously. I was thinking of oh my God, I am blanking because this is almost 2 a.m.
Dwight Powell, you were thinking
Dwight
of
Powell.
Dwight
Yes,
and
thank you.
I'm glad you fell on your sword there, because so was I. I was also thinking of Dwight Powell. So yeah, he's got 2 years left. Norman Powell, I would imagine, stays on account of the fact that if he doesn't stay in Portland, you just gave up Gary Trent for nothing. You gave him up for a rental of a third guard in a very underwhelming postseason run. I think if you're Portland, you have to keep Norm Powell for a contract akin to that which he just opted out of, which is about 11 per annum and rising. Whether that's not an optimum fit, as we know, Portland has far too much to do in its front court to be paying its money to the third guard, but they can sort that out later. Like we said, let's reevaluate that in January. I imagine, therefore, that Norman Powell stays. I also imagine that Dwight Powell stays.
Yeah, because he's under contract. Can I throw you a curveball with Norman Powell?
No.
Well, I'm going to anyway.
Well, I'm going to leave then.
All right, well, you know what? Suit yourself. Detroit.
Okay.
I think that would be fun.
How much money they got?
They probably need to move a little bit. No. Who did they move to?
Well, they just spent it up on Olynyk, right? They just gave him the equivalent of $13 million a year.
This is true. Yeah.
They have the substantial overhanging Blake.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Between him and Grant, that's best part of $50 million, best part of half your cap. Don't know if they can afford him. In terms
they
of
can.
Fits, you've got Killian Hayes, who you're invested in, irrespective of how bad his rookie season went, and of course you've got Cade. He would be a nice piece. He'd be a nice player on any team. He's Norm Powell got very good. I can't see it being too likely. I would imagine he resigns to in order to dissuade him from resigning in Portland. You're going to have to outbid what I'm totally presuming but expecting them to offer, and I don't think Detroit can do that as constructed. But I
absolutely forgot about Kelly Olynyk because this has been moving very, very fast. And you're right. That's a significant chunk of cap space that is now off the table for Detroit.
We're really good at this. We should do it every week.
We really should. People would tune in if we did it weekly. So
all 7 of them.
All 7 of them. And also we have this one from Emil again. Where do you think Oladipo would fit the best and what's his price? So this is difficult because there were rumors circulating, I want to say a month and a half ago, maybe a little bit more than that, that basically suggested that he might be out for a significant chunk of this season. I don't know if that changes his price tag. It probably does.
Well, who's to say he's even going to get a contract at all if he's really that injured? This isn't a Kawhi Leonard situation where you have to tie him down even though he's out for the year. This is Victor Oladipo, a man who had one good year and hasn't followed it up since, and he keeps getting hurt. A cop-out answer is that it purely depends on his health, and the reason I say that is because we have no idea how that will pan out. If he's not able to go, I think it's very possible that he goes unsigned. He can't even go to China because they're not having imports this year. I imagine he could be a pickup for someone like, I suppose he could go back to Miami. I think he could go to the Clippers where he could get ahead of Luke Kennard. They could certainly use a little infusion whilst Kawhi is on the shelf.
Well, he might be on the shelf himself, though.
Indeed.
So, yeah. I don't know. I think it's tough finding a market.
Have we answered any questions yet, or have we just fobbed everyone off? This is why we've only got 2 viewers.
Let's see here. We have from Eska, who will be the biggest loser of free agency? Well, this is early.
Well, it's been 108 minutes, Asker.
Right.
So it's very good time to call it. Do you mean team wise or player wise? Both, I suppose.
Let's go with both. So far there isn't anyone standing out as having done something horrifically. I mean, I understand there's some pushback just in terms of the New Orleans Pelicans losing Lonzo for not very much, but you already broke that down. I don't really see.
I don't like what San Antonio's done.
This is true. Yes, that's a good one.
$14 million for Doug McDermott per annum,
Yeah.
and $7 million for Zach Collins. That's $21 million in backup forward.
You're right.
That hasn't done much. You're reliant
Nope.
upon McDermott there. You haven't changed the prognosis or timeline of your team. Very difficult to do in free agency, of course, when you aren't a destination and you haven't got a great deal of incumbent talent. But you'd have to imagine there were other options, even in the trade market. They could facilitate many of these deals that other teams are looking to do. Instead, they've gone for Doug McDermott and a whim on Zach Collins. So I don't really like that. I wouldn't go as far as to call them losers. I wouldn't go as far as to call anyone losers because we don't know the parameters in which teams are operating. But I don't like what they've done, if that's what you're referring to.
Right. And also, we don't know the monetary amount for Reggie Bullock with the Mavericks. And that was one of those situations where, if he's getting overpaid, that is going to drastically alter, people's opinion, just in terms of whether he was a good signing or not. But we do have financial information here about Alex Len, who signed a 2-year deal worth $7.65 million.
Right. So
that's reasonable.
It is. It's backup center 5-man post player money for a backup center 5-man post player, and it's still meh. But yeah, it's not an overpayment.
And
I don't know if it's a strictly necessary one for Sacramento, but it's not an overpayment.
Right. And in the meantime, Dwight Howard is returning for his 3rd stint with the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yep. Yeah, that one's been long since known. He would have resigned there last year if they had actually offered him a contract. But that was always going to happen.
Yeah. What actually happened last year? I'm a little bit forgetful. He was expecting a contract offer. They didn't make it. He signed with the Sixers. Why is he getting one now if they didn't want him last year? What am I missed here?
No, that's pretty much it.
Right.
That's pretty much what happened. Because they had Mark Sol, and maybe they thought we're going to get something out of DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah.
They just didn't offer a contract. And now they have. Because
Mark Gasol looks done, by the way.
Yes, he didn't look good in the Olympics. He had a 2.9 turnover game, which is quite impressive, and he looked out of shape doing it. Now, in fairness, he followed that up with a much better performance, but Powell's outplaying him, and Powell is significantly older, so he shouldn't be. Powell is, of course, timeless and phenomenally skilled, even though I think he's 41 now, which is even older than us. But Mark doesn't look good out in the Olympics, no. However, I don't know. Look, Davis should just play center. Let's just cut to the chase. Anthony Davis really should play center. The Lakers would vault back into title contention, but for as long as he doesn't, Dwight and Mark it is.
Yeah, I suggested to Brian recently that they should just start Davis at center and not tell him. I think that solves the issue.
Yeah, he could do. I mean, Brooklyn started Bruce Brown at center at times last year. So all you've got to do is just say to AD, look, we're going to start you with center. No. It's not against Jokic. No, he's a point guard. They're doing a Will Barton thing this year, so you've just got to guard Will Barton, and we'll handle the rest. Yeah. If he's worried about physicality, there's just not as much of it as there was. So, but hey, who's to say? You've obviously got to pander to the man who your future is dependent upon. It's just bizarre that he needs pandering to in this way, considering the way of the league around him.
Absolutely. This is I've been very puzzled at his continued insistence on this, especially since the position has become so interchangeable. But you know what? It's on year 4. This is going on right now, so I'm not even invested anymore. So Solomon Hill has agreed to a 1-year deal to return to the Atlanta Hawks. The man who should not have played as much as he did last year because of all the depth ended up playing, I want to say somewhere around 1,200, 1,500 minutes because of injuries all around. And, he wasn't great because he's Solomon Hill, but he did a decent job of at least absorbing minutes. So this might be a little bit of, we'll give you a contract for what you did last year, because I just don't understand his presence otherwise when you have such a loaded wing rotation.
Played all but one regular season game and averaged 21.6 minutes per game.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing so, he averaged 4 and 3. Coaches and front offices like Solomon Hill. They like him as a person. They also like what he offers on the court. Not because it's much, but because you know what you're getting. Yeah. He is a player you do not mind having on your roster and who you don't want in your rotation. Hopefully Atlanta plays him accordingly, just like they did last year. And hopefully, as you say, he's not getting as near as his 1,500 minutes again, because he doesn't have to. But you do know that if he is called upon to do so, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's odd to see what is essentially the move for a 12th man in the first 2 hours of free agency. But just treating it for what it is in a vacuum, I imagine he's getting the minimum, which if he is getting a 1-year deal, would interestingly make him give him the right to veto any trade he's in. So hold up on your Solomon Hill trade scenarios, everybody. But yeah, I imagine he's just getting the minimum or a smidge above it to come back and fill the same role with hopefully a different minute share.
Yeah, that is what I'm hoping as well. By the way, I'm finding it curious that we have not heard more about Thaddeus Young, because I know he's on the market as well. I know the Timberwolves in particular were looking for a veteran four-man. And if there is a guy out there who fits that bill and who would also fit that roster because he's not that shot hungry, he's a passer, he's a defender, that's Thaddeus Young. Like, shouldn't there be a deal made there? Or at the very least, there would be logic to it, no?
There would, but you don't want to go moving for Thaddeus Young until you're sure you're not getting Ben Simmons.
Yeah, that's a really fair point. If that's what they're going for, especially this summer, you definitely don't want to get a little bit too impatient, for sure.
Yeah, now Thad Young had a little second win last year, and a useful all-around player on both ends of the court. There's a market there.
Right.
Why Minnesota would, I know they want a veteran power forward, but you can still be a young veteran power forward, a la someone like Ben Simmons. It means they don't want another Jaden McDaniels on their hand because they've already got him. Or is it Jalen? I never remember which is which. But he would benefit Minnesota, but like I said, they have or should have other priorities, specifically, but not solely Ben Simmons.
And we have a comment here from Roman who says, out of 7 active NBA players who have already turned pro by 2004, NBA or overseas, 4 are now on the Lakers roster, waiting for Carmelo, Iguodala, and Ilyasova to sign in LA. This is a good one.
Yeah, we've reached an age where we can't really criticize people's ages, but I think there's 6 NBA players left that are older than me. So personally, I'm hoping that someone will sign Jamal Crawford and Kyle Korver and David Robinson and Zelmo Beatty and everyone basically. So it is going to be an old team. However, there does exist opportunity for growth here for Taylor Horton Tucker, who I'm assuming they're going to bring back, who's a good player and a good defender, who's made some offensive strides, who will provide the young, fresh legs that creaky old team needs. I really don't think they should. Whilst I take your point, Roman, I really don't think they should sign those 3. But if they do, then happy days. Someone get some blankets for them on the bench.
Mark Stein is reporting that the Lakers and the Nets are both in pursuit of Patty Mills.
Yep, fair enough. Why wouldn't they be?
Because, right, exactly.
Yeah, Spencer Dinwiddie is a better player overall, but given his more off-ball role, I do like the idea of Patty Mills coming in behind Kyrie, because James Harden doesn't need Spencer Dinwiddie.
No, he needs a floor spacer.
Which Dinwiddie would be, but he wouldn't just be that, whereas Patty Mills is far happy to just bomb around and get him up.
Well, I mean, Dinwiddie's floor spacing has always been, I think, at best average, so he's not really a natural floor spacer either. He's very ball dominant, as you alluded to as well. I mean, Mills is positions really don't exist anymore, but he is more of a traditional shooting guard in that sense, right? Like moving off the ball, not really picking up the dribble a whole lot. He's like a 6'2" Kyle Korver, but a little bit worse shooting wise.
He's aged well, and the shooting won't
Yes.
leave him even as the speed does. So it's a nice little pickup for both teams. And it very much makes sense that after a decade, that it's finally time he left the Spurs, who do need to get younger and start again. So I imagine Rudy Gay will leave as well. He also would be a good pickup for both teams.
Yeah, I would agree. Mark, it is around that time. We've been on the air for a little over 2 hours. So many deals have gone down. So I just want to ask one final question before I let you go. What has been your favorite deal so far?
Well, I mean, you're asking me the impossible there. Favorite, as in that I think is best, or that somehow tickled my funny bone? Which
both, please.
Both. Well, okay. If you could elaborate more on the question to give me time to think about an answer, that would be great. So what specifically are you asking for? He says slowly.
Well, let's start with the monetary value from the team's perspective. Like, what deal has been the best one for a team through the lens
Bobby
of the team?
Portis. That's the one that made me and you go say, what?
Yeah.
He's not the best player that's signed, and Lord knows deals such as that for Chris Paul, who resigned for a lot less than I thought he was going to, are nice, but to get 4.5 million, to get 10 million's worth of play, out of 4.5 million for Portis on a team with luxury tax concerns, who also can do that deal using only the non-bird rights, thus keeping over the taxpayer MLE, is mighty fine business.
Right. And the best deal for a seen through the lens of a player?
You see, you should have left it there, because that was a brilliant closer. That was like a wonderful moment to go out on. You could have just pulled the plug there. I could probably drop my phone on the buttons again and log out. From a player's point of view, I mean, Doug McDermott just got 14 million when he, even in the world of shooters, the optimist thought he was going to get more than 10 per annum. So yeah, I don't want to harp on about that one. I just don't see the value in it. I will sleep on it and think about it a bit more. But it certainly is much more than I was expecting him to get.
I'll go with his teammate, Zach Collins. I didn't expect him to get that much. So I think
That's
for him,
but I'm happy for him, because that's the kind of deal he would be getting if he hadn't kept getting hurt.
Right.
He had his QO pulled, but that was at about that same sort of value for money range. And that's the kind of player he was looking like he was going to be. He still can. I just didn't think it would be now.
And for the record, I'm happy for anyone who gets paid. They deserve it. They work their asses off. I'm not one to judge if someone gets more money than what the market should otherwise suggest. Like, if you get overpaid, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't want to be hypocrites, because we're both paid so very, very well for what we do, which is way more
fantastically
that we should want the same for others. So get that paper.
On that note, Mark, thank you so much for joining in on these 2 hours of opening free agency. I'm sure that right after we stop this feed, news are going to trickle in like crazy, because of course they will. But I'm hoping to have you back some point soon, because it did seem like people enjoyed it. We just got a final note from Harry saying really enjoyed it. Thanks both. So
thanks to both of our watchers as well. That's all two of you. Very happy. No, it was a pleasure to sit here and talk bollocks off the cuff. You don't get to do that very often when you're an Englishman doing this. So thank you for having me, and all the best to you.
Likewise. Have a good one.
Set up.